Good morning, everybody, and Chodesh Tov. We are now in the Chodesh, a few days before Kabbalat Torah. First of all, if we're talking about Kabbalat Torah, we call it Chag Matan Torah. Chag Matan, what's Matan Torah? God is giving us the Torah. So, what we mean when we say Kabbalat Torah? We receive the Torah. We get the Torah. We're getting the Torah. So we have to have something very important to understand. Whatever God gives, He gives it completely, full, 100% divine, nothing less, the whole thing. But we are limited. We cannot get the whole thing. This is why, by the way, we say in the Tefillah, "V'ten chelkeinu b'toratecha." Give us our share in the Torah. We don't ask, give us the whole Torah, because we cannot get the whole Torah. And this is why, from one side, it's Matan Torah, and from the other side, Matan Torah is God giving us the Torah. It gets from up there completely, 100%, the full light of the Kodesh Baruch Hu of the Torah. But we are getting the Torah, mekablim et Torah, and to get the Torah, to receive it, to get it from God, we are limited. And this is what we do in Sfirat HaOmer. We prepare ourselves to be a vessel to get our share in the Torah. This is the meaning of Kabbalat Torah. God gives everything in one go, flop. We receive it slowly and limited. It's, for example, the famous story with Rabbi Akiva that was looking at a stone, that the water was making a hole in the stone. And he was the age of 40, started to learn, sitting with those kids, and nothing getting to his head. And then when he went out and he saw the drops falling on the stone, and there is a hole in the stone. And you can sit there for days, and you won't see that the drops do anything to the stone. But if you will wait a long time, a few months, a few years, then you will see, slowly but surely, there is a hole being made by the water. If you have a microscope or whatever you call it, like that really enlarges everything, I don't know how much, then maybe you can see the drops doing something. But in your own eyes, you see nothing. But the evidence is there. The water did something. So, Rabbi says, wow, beautiful. Meaning is that it doesn't matter, even if this stone that is hard, the water can make a sign, can go in and drill a hole in it, so definitely the Torah can make a hole in my head and get in. And he went back to learn. But there is here another lesson. Let's imagine to ourselves that the water that did this hole in the stone, in the rock, will come down from heaven in one go. All the water of all those years that did this hole, that drilled this hole in the rock, in the stone. Would anything happen to the stone? Would there be a hole in the stone? No. And that's exactly the point. We have to prepare a vessel. God sent us everything in one go. But our job is to get it step by step, slowly, and each one with his own part in the Torah, with his own chelek in Torah. V'ten chelkeinu b'toratecha. And this brings us to the parasha, which starts with a very interesting point. וידבר השם אל משה, נשוא את ראש בני גרשון גם הם. Raise up the heads of the children of Gershon, them also, גם הם, them also. What does it mean? מה זה גם הם? What is גם הם? What is this? We don't need this. Yeah, raise up the heads of the children of Gershon. It's enough. What is gam hem? Also them. Why? What's the difference between them and all the others? You see, the job of the children of Gershon was schleppers. They had to schlep all the tent and all the wood parts and all the outside parts of the Mishkan. They were not in the holy of the holy in Kodesh HaKodashim. And like when you look at it from the outside, they were like let's say, the delivery people, the truck people, the schleppers. And you would think that this is not a very high position. What is God telling us? Gam hem. Each one of us Each one with his work, with his job. Ish al avodato ve'al masao, said the Torah. Every person with his own job, with his own work. This is equality. This is equality in the eyes of God. This is being the same from the point of view of fulfilling your task in life. As we said hundreds of times, that's the idea of Sfirat HaOmer. Each one of us is counting, is building himself, but as a part of the thing. And nobody is less than the others. It's like the famous story with Reb Zusha from Manipoli, the brother of Noam Elimelech, when they found him. And we saying it hundreds of times, but it's important to put it in our head. They found him crying. They asked him, why are you crying, Reb Zusha? He says, oh, I'm crying because when I get to heaven, they won't ask me why haven't I been Moshe Rabbeinu. The people laughed. What do you mean? You're not Moshe Rabbeinu. Yes, you're Reb Zusha, you're very important, you're very clever, you're Talmid Chacham, but Moshe Rabbeinu, you're not. Lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe. There was nobody like Moses. And says Reb Zusha, that's exactly why I'm crying. God is not going to ask me why I am not Moshe Rabbeinu. Why didn't I achieve the achievements of Moshe Rabbeinu? He's going to ask me why haven't I been Reb Zusha? And this is what each one of us is going to be asked. Did you fulfill your potential? And from this point of view, we have to understand something in this creation. The real world is the next world. The neshama is the real thing for eternity. The body is something temporary. So, in other words, the neshama comes down to this world and God gives the neshama a job. It can be a taxi driver. It can be a professor in university. It can be a great rabbi. And it can be a simple guy. But each one of us is getting a body that has to fulfill his task in life through the neshama. In other words, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your job is, as long as you fulfill your job. And it doesn't matter if you're a professor, if you're very clever, if you're a rabbi or a peasant, nothing matters. The only thing that matters, fulfilling our own job, using our own potential. And we have to use it. And this brings us to the basic of everything. We have Birkat Kohanim in our parasha, the blessing of the Kohanim. And when I come to the blessing of the Kohanim, I always remember my father, Alav Sholom. My father, when he was very ill, he had an operation, did something, it was a screw in his leg, whatever, we're not going to understand. So he was seduced, they gave him a lot of drugs, he was dragged out, and he was really... When we came, the family, the children, the grandchildren, and we asked our father to bless us, one of the great moments in life with my father is the way he blessed us on Erev Shabbos with the blessing of Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichoneka, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And an amazing thing happened. When we came in and we asked him to bless us, suddenly he woke up. He was lightened. And he blessed us. And when I remember this, I'm very excited. It's very emotional. And he says, Yivarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichoneka. And we thought, everything is okay. Everything is good. He is in the best position. That's life. That's what it is. It's very good where he is. Now, it's going to wake up. It's going to happen. But then, 2 minutes later, after he finished the blessing, he went back to the catatonic jungle. So, like the blessing of Yevarechecha Hashem v'yishmerecha woke him up. He was like a new man. But then, went back to the same situation. I will never forget it. This is this great blessing of Hashem v'yishmerecha. Sometimes in shul, You don't realize how people behave while the Kohanim are blessing us. It's not the Kohanim, it's God himself blessing us. Through the Kohanim. And people talk and people don't understand. God is blessing you. And you don't have to go to a tzaddik at the other side of the world, the other side of the country. It's near your house, in shul. Every day, every morning you get blessed from the Kohanim, which means from the Kodesh Baruch Hu himself. And this beautiful blessing is written in singular and not plural. Why? Because the Kohanim are really blessing all the congregation. So it should be Yevarechechem, not Yevarechecha. V'cha Hashem ve'ishmerchem, and not ve'ishmerecha. Yair Hashem panav elechem ve'lo elecha, and so on. So why is it written in singular? So one thing is, as we said, each one of us is an individual. So God is saying, each one of you is like my only son. And you're going to be blessed like you are the only one here. But from the other side, doesn't it remind you something? How do we receive the Torah? How do we get the Torah? Ke'ish echad belev echad, like one. That's the idea. If we want the blessing of the Kohanim really fulfill itself, it's only when we are united, when we as one. That's the power, the greatest power. And that brings us to the next stage of the parasha, when the princes, the Nesi'im, are bringing a very interesting sacrifice. Two sacrifices. The one is, two tribes, two princes are getting together. Each one of them is bringing an ox, and together they bring one wagon. One wagon to two princes with two oxes. Why? Why don't you bring already, each one of them will bring two oxes with a wagon? Why to be stingy? But that's exactly the point. And the Torah doesn't mention who it is. Because it didn't matter. They just did a lottery, and whatever, like Judah with Reuven, they brought two oxes and one wagon. What does it mean? That each one of us has got his own head. But we are both of us connected to the same wagon, going in the same direction, going in the best way, the way of the Torah. This is also when we're talking about marriage, about a couple, when each one of us, the man and the woman, are fulfilling their own task, their own abilities, but carrying together the wagon of the family, the wagon of life. Beautiful. Then, one of the most unique things in the whole Bible. We all know that the Torah is very, very careful with the words, with the letters, and you don't use even a letter. Definitely not a word if you don't need it, if it doesn't tell you something new. And look what's happening here. We are going on with the parasha, and we're getting to the point. And by the way, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't even understand what to do. So God is telling him what to do with all those things. The sacrifice we talked about now, and now the next one also. Suddenly, the princes come, and look what it is. And they want to bring an offer. ויקריבו הנשיאים את חנוכת המזבח ביום משך אותו ויקריבו הנשיאים את קורבנם. They bring the sacrifice before the altar. ביום של משה, 1 minute. Each one of them is going to bring his own sacrifice in his own day. They're not going to bring all of them together in the same day. Each one of them has got 1 day. And also on Shabbos. And it's very strange, because on Shabbos normally you don't bring a sacrifice unless it's a public sacrifice, not a personal sacrifice. And then look what's happening. ויהי המקריב ביום הראשון, the first day, נחשון בן עמינדב למטה יהודה. וקורבנו. What is his sacrifice? And listen to it. קערת כסף אחת, I'm not going to translate it, we don't need to, but listen to the words. קערת כסף אחת 30 ומאה משקלה, מזרק אחד כסף 70 שקל בשקל לקודש, נעים מלאים סולת גלולה בשמן למנחה. כף אחת 10 זהב מלקטורת, פר אחד בן בקר, עיל אחד, כבש אחד משתתו לעולה, שעיר עזים אחד לחטאת, ולזבח השלמים בקר 2, מילים 5, דודים 5, כבשים משנה 5, זה קורבן נחשון בן עמינדב. Okay. Now we're going on to the second day. ביום השני הקריב נתנאל בן צוער, נשיא ישראל בן נתנאל בן צוער, נתנאל the son of צוער from שבט יששכר. He is the one who had this brilliant idea, and in a minute we'll explain. הקריב את קורבנו, קערת כסף אחת, 30 ומאה משקלה, מזרק אחד כסף 70 שקל בשקל לקודש, you know, I'm not going to read it. It's exactly the same words, the same psukim, 12 times with each one of the princes, with each one of the Nesiim. Why? The Torah could write it once, and then say, okay, the prince from Judah, the prince from Reuben, the prince from Issachar, they all brought this sacrifice, because it's exactly the same words, the same psukim. Why? 12 times the same words? But this is real achdut, real unity. Came Netanel ben Tzuar, and he told all the tribes, let us all bring the same sacrifice exactly. You're the rich tribes, big tribes, small tribes. No, we are going to bring exactly the same, each one of us. When God saw this, he says, wow, this is exactly what I want. So each one of them is going to get his own special day. And on Shabbos they're going to bring it also, because this is not a private sacrifice. This is not a personal sacrifice. This is the public. This is the klal. This is the beautiful thing of Ke'ish Echad Belev Echad, bringing the same sacrifice, and then brings us to the in Antwerp, I think still today, but I remember it years ago, they used to do a Kiddush on Shabbos. You could not believe it. Like a wedding. And not everybody could afford it to himself. They had those diamond people. At that time they were very rich, and they're still there, not as it was in the old days, but if a normal guy, or if somebody hasn't got it, they used to go take loans in the bank in order to make a Kiddush, not to be ashamed. One of the rabbis, I don't remember the name, one day came to the congregation and says, from this day on, the Kiddush is going to be schmaltz herring, leikach, this cake, this normal simple cake, crackers, and banana liquor. That's it. Oh, wow, this is not nice. We want to bring a Kiddush. There's somebody who doesn't like it. The door is open, you can leave. I must say that after a few weeks, everybody was satisfied, because the rich people also, they didn't need to spend money. And this is what you bring, and that's it. And the poor people, they were more happy, because now there was no competition, didn't need to do anything. Beautiful. So much to learn from it. And I want to end this shiur with another interesting point. A friend sent me a few years ago, climbing the Everest, with a beautiful story about a 24 student that was preparing himself for a whole year, maybe even more, and buying all the things he needed in order to climb the Everest. And to climb the Everest is not a simple thing. It takes weeks. There are stages. And then at the end of all, there is a camp, and we have one day to get to the top of the Everest. And at that day, you are by yourself. Why? You're not connected to nobody. Because if chas v'sholom, one is going to sleep, is going to drag everybody with him. So each one for himself. And it's really each one for himself. On the way there, you can find bodies. And the bodies, they look like they're sleeping, because it's very cold, no animals, no nothing. And this guy, I'm going to make this story short. This guy is climbing. This is what he was waiting for, what he was preparing himself, spending the money to get to the top of the Everest. And on the way, he sees bodies left there. People don't care. They just want to get to the top. And then he sees one of the climber that he was with him, an Indian guy, I think, that was with him in the camp before. And he also looks dead. Like you don't see a difference between dead and sleeping. But he's there stuck in a hole in the rock or something. So he's shaking him, and suddenly he realized that he is still alive. Now, what should he do? From one point of view, he wants to get to the top, and also, who is going to ensure you that you are going to save this guy? And nevertheless, you are also risking yourself. In this height, you can very easily lose it all. What is he deciding? He lets his dream go. And he takes this Indian guy, and he saved his life. It wasn't easy. There were moments that they could both die. What an heroic thing. From the other side, I was looking in the internet about climbing the Everest. And there's so unbelievable, terrible stories about people dying on the way and the others don't care. And then they say they call it this big rubbish dump in the whole world. On top you see food, sorry to say, what you do in the toilets, and torn flags and torn tents. And you know, whatever is there stays forever because there are no birds there, there is no life there. It looks ugly. But the main idea is climbing to the mountain and caring only about yourself. From the other side, we are going to climb in a few days to the mountain of Sinai to receive the Torah. And this is a whole different climbing. This climbing is climbing and caring for each other. And if somebody falls, you don't leave him and walk away. You help him. That's the idea of Matan Torah. And I must say, I've talked about it this week, and my brother sent me an unbelievable message with an article that was, I think, also 1 year or 2 years ago. This same guy who saved the life of this Indian guy, or maybe it was a Turkish guy, I don't remember. This same guy was saved. He was on a death, almost dead, climbing on a mountain in Japan, I think, one of the 3 highest mountain in the world. And he fall. I don't want to go into. I didn't even read the whole story, but God sent him a savior to save him. Midah keneged midah. What a beautiful lesson to learn. God is with us, and God wants. The first thing He wants that we are being together and preparing our vessel to receive the beauty of the Torah. Each one with his own job, with his own part of the Torah. Build a vessel without holes. And don't forget for a minute, you're not climbing alone. You are climbing with all of Israel. And get to the point of Ke'ish echad belev echad. All the best. And have a very happy day of Matan Torah, Be'ezrat Hashem.